Hello there, folks. This is Simon Coulson from Business Opportunity Review and Internet Business School. And this evening we are going to be talking about making money from property with installment contracts. This is a fascinating subject. It's a kind of hot new topic in strategies for property investment that I first became aware of the back end of last year. And this evening I'm joined by two leading industry experts, which is Doug Ponsford, who I've actually known for about 7 years now, a very experienced property guy. I'll let him introduce himself more fully in a second. And his business partner, Masud Sally. And over the last 3 years, these guys have completed over 40 of these installment contract deals. So what they're going to do is explain to you this evening what an installment contract is, why it's such a great vehicle for investing in property or even disposing of an existing property that you may have. If you've got any questions as we go through the presentation, then if you could just type them in the Q&A box. And what we're going to do at the end of the webinar is we'll do a Q&A session as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Doug and Masud. So Doug, are you there?
Thank you, Simon. And good evening, everybody that's on this webinar this evening. And in the next 40 minutes, I'm going to show you how you can be using installment contracts and make on average between £40,000 and £50,000 per transaction. I'm also going to show you how you can do that without the need of a mortgage, without the need of any credit checks, in fact without the need of borrowing any money at all, without the need of tenants, no voids or repairs, no maintenance issues, and in fact you don't even need any experience. So before we crack on, I'd like to give you a little bit of information about myself, tell you my story and the reason why I'm on here this evening. I left school at age 15 with not even a stiff qualification. Within days I was working in a local factory just down the road from the council estate where I was born and raised. By the time I'd reached 18, I was already running my own business and listening to motivational tapes. So I remember driving around in my car listening to Brian Tracy and Dr. Dennis Waitley. Back in those days we only had cassette tapes in the cars. CDs hadn't yet been invented. And now by the time I'd reached my mid-20s, I was already running my own retail, wholesale and import empire. I had multiple outlets around the Kent area and I employed over 50 staff. This took me to many far-off places in the search of the products that I would need to buy for my retail and wholesale business. And I learned about the cultures of the Far East and I visited many countries around the world. And in the process, I discovered some secrets behind human potential and behaviours from some of the world's leading personal development coaches. So I moved on to financial services and established a successful IFA practice, mortgage broking practice back in the late 80s, employing 6 advisors, and I had a large team of back office support staff. During my time as a mortgage broker, I learned some very creative financing strategies, and I quickly started purchasing property using a creative no money down system. And this has enabled me over the years to build a substantial multi-million-pound property portfolio, which now generates a net annual income of well into 6 figures. Now, due to the major changes in the financial marketplace brought about by the banking system, I have for the past 3 years been focusing my attention on the niche market of installment contracts. And this has enabled me to massively grow my portfolio and now generates revenue of between £40,000 and £50,000 a deal. This is what I'm hoping that we can show you this evening. I've come to the realization that with the right mindset and with a little know-how, I've been able to repeatedly establish and build successful businesses, whatever industry I've chosen. And furthermore, by applying my personal development tools and processes that I've learned over the years, I've proven over and over again that it's possible to build a massively successful business no matter what the market conditions are and no matter what background you come from. So, if I can do it with my lack of formal education, then I'm sure anyone can do it. Which leads me nicely on to introducing my business partner and good friend, Masud Salih.
What a great story. I feel that we have a lot in common, though. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Masud Salih. I was born of a Turkish family in a small village in southeastern Bulgaria. You can probably tell from my name. If you're born in Bulgarian village, and you usually have two options of employment, either to become a shepherd or become a tobacco farmer. So, because life was hard in Bulgaria, I chose to study hard. My family always taught me how to be successful at school, and they really pushed me hard to become a very good student. So I had very good results at high school, and in 2005 I was accepted to Richmond American University with a presidential scholarship. So I said, great, I'm going to the UK, so life is going to get better. But I left the village on 29th of August 2005, arrived in the UK. I had to pay £800 for part of my tuition fees. So I had £25 left in my wallet on 30th of August. So when you're new in the country, when you don't have any friends, you don't speak any, and my English was really bad at the time, what do you do? I had the desire, I had a strong will and persistence and faith that one day I will succeed. I start reading books. I start reading property books. I start attending property events. I start meeting like-minded people. I was working in a restaurant in Richmond part-time in the evenings, and I was allowed to live in a staff house where the people working in the restaurant used to live. It was a quite big house in Twickenham, and he had 4 vacant rooms. I approached the owner of the restaurant and asked, well, can I sublet the rooms? He said, yes, of course you can. Feel free to manage the property. I took that on board and started subletting the rooms. Within 2 weeks, the whole house was full. And I realized that, well, I'm making more money from the subletting the rooms than I'm earning at the restaurant. Something is interesting here. So that was the day when I discovered the power of property. So I decided to borrow some money from relatives and try to buy the traditional way. I soon realized that no one would lend me any money. Then I had to find an alternative way. I had to find a way where I didn't need to get a mortgage and can buy houses with little or no money. So I started doing installment contracts. And since then, we started working with Doug. We met at a property event, and we started working from an office. Then we set a rule in the office. If you can't do something without money, you can't do it with money either. And since then, it has become the only rule. So we adhere to it at every deal. A lot has changed since 2005. Now I run a full-time property business. We have an excellent team running 5 property-related businesses, actually. And we've built our systems to a degree that we're doing 2 deals a week now.
Well, Masud, thank you for that very nice introduction. Now, we're going to have a look at the overview of tonight's webinar. And first of all, Masud is going to explain to us why and how we should be using installment contracts in today's marketplace. Then we're going to go on to look at how we should buy and control property using no more than a JV agreement. JV stands for Joint Venture Agreement. It's just one single document which enables us to take control of property. Then we're going to look at the 3 paydays from each deal and look at how actually we're going to physically make some money. And Masud's going to explain to us how to sniff the profits from any deal and every deal and turn lemons into gold mines. Very interesting subject. Finally, I'm going to explain how we create a win-win-win situation from every deal. So without further ado, we're going to move on to the first subject, which is Masud. Can you please tell us why should we be using installment contracts in today's market?
Firstly, though, it is the most profitable strategy by far in the current climate.
So, can you tell me why it's the most profitable?
Look, when we do installment contracts, we get paid when buyer pays a deposit. We get paid from the monthly cash flow, the difference between the amount that the buyer pays us, the installment amount, and the amount we pay out to the bank. We also get a back-end profit when the buyer completes on the deal. That gives us far greater return than any other strategy out there on the market today, even more than has a multiple occupation, so-called multi-lets. We do multi-lets, but they don't make as much money as our installment contracts.
And the reason for that is going to become obvious, I think.
Well, I'm going to explain with few deals in the next few slides, and you'll discover the profit yourself, and you'll realize the power of installment contracts, why we are so keen on this subject. Well, installment contract is actually an exit strategy. So we use installment contracts when we sell the deal on to buyers. So we use a different agreement called joint venture, like Doug mentioned, to control property. So installment contract basically is pretty similar to a normal house buying process. That's where a buyer pays a deposit and exchanges contracts, and then moves. But the difference between traditional and installment contract purchase is that with installment contract, you exchange contracts, the buyer moves in but doesn't have to complete, and the buyer starts paying monthly installments that are based on a payment schedule. Then the buyer moves in, keeps making payments until they're able to pay off the balance or able to get a mortgage themselves down the line. So usually we are a 3 to 5 year arrangement. So we're looking to complete within 3 to 5 years.
So, Masud, does that mean that a buyer doesn't actually need to take out a bank mortgage?
Absolutely not. I will explain you why. Right. As I explained earlier, the buyer comes in with a small cash deposit. That usually is 3 to 5% of the purchase price of the property. But we had instances where we had massive deposits, because the bigger the deposit the buyer puts down, the less their monthly payments becomes on the payment schedule. So the buyer pays a deposit, a small deposit, moves in, and we present them with a payment schedule. And on the payment schedule, there is a date of payment and amount of payment that they pay every month. So on exchange, we create the payment schedule, they put their deposit down, and we create an installment contract and exchange contracts based on that. Then the buyer moves in, gets the keys, and starts making monthly payments.
So, is there a demand for this type of thing? Can you show me some evidence of the demand for instalment contracts from the general public?
Okay, right. Market has changed a lot since 2007. You know, the banking crisis, the global financial crisis has reshaped the market massively. Before, anyone could get a mortgage, and you can get a mortgage even on the ugliest property. But nowadays, it is virtually quite impossible to get mortgages. In fact, only 20% of the market that is out there ready to buy houses can get mortgage and have got sufficient deposit to buy the traditional way. Basically, the estate agents that are on the high street are marketing only to the 20% of the potential market. So they're missing a big chunk out of it. So that's why installment contracts is such a unique product, that we have got the ability to look after 80% of the market that is missing out, that are forced to rent at the moment. So they got no choice, and that's why the rent has been going up so fast, because that 80% hasn't been able to buy houses, and there's been such a great demand for rents, and the rental market has exploded. Also, installment contracts are very quick to complete and provide certainty for the buyer, unlike other contracts available out there, like options. We were able to get full asking price for our houses. Do you know why? Because installment contracts are quick and easy and uncomplicated. If you had to buy the traditional way, you had to wait for the bank to assess your application. You have to go through the underwriters. You have to prove deposits. You have to prove income. You have to come up with references, credit checks. You get involved with mortgage brokers, surveyors, and estate agents. All these entities make the house buying process slow and difficult. By us getting rid of all these professionals, it becomes easy, quick, and very uncomplicated. So because we made it easy, buyers are happy to pay full asking price and even more, sometimes 10 or 15% more than asking price, as we're going to demonstrate with a few examples further down the road. Also, because it's quite unique and limited opportunity for a buyer to become a homeowner rather than being forced to letting, they're happy to pay the monthly amount we ask. So that's why it gives us such a great cash flow, because we can charge higher monthly amounts than the market rent. This enables us, in effect, to maximize our cash flow on our installment contracts, and we receive great amounts from buyers. Also, we don't have no maintenance problems. We don't have any voids. We don't have actually any repair issues because they are not tenants. When a tenant moves into a house, they move with a baseball bat, bag of weed, couple of pit bulls, and a few cats. But when a buyer moves in, they move in with a paintbrush, ladder, paint, and new furniture. So they look after the place.
So thank you, Masud. I think we understood how we're going to sell a house using an instalment contract, but how are we first of all going to buy the house in the first place?
But we'd like to explain to our listeners how we buy and control the house first of all. So,
okay, well, look, I hope you guys out there are taking some notes here, because there's probably going to be a number of questions around that subject of instalment contract. Masud has gone through it fairly quickly. It is a very complex and complicated contract. It's only one document, but there's probably a number of questions that you need to ask at the end of the meeting. So please write down your questions, and we'll be glad to answer all those unanswered questions. So, first of all, or not first of all, but following on from that, we're going to look at how we're going to buy and control property. And basically, when we buy property, we look at basically two ways of buying and controlling property. First of all, we may decide to buy the property using a mortgage. Virtually in the traditional way, we use a buy-to-let mortgage. Generally speaking, when we buy a property using a mortgage, we will always get a discount on the property. A lot of the guys online this evening will know about the BMV market, below market value, where you obtain discounts. We still use that strategy. We may also use what we call vendor finance. And in other words, the seller becomes our bank. In other words, the vendor or seller allows us to use their finance in order to purchase their property from them. More about that later. We may also decide just to babysit the property. This works particularly well where there's little or no equity left in the property. We simply offer to babysit or look after the property and the mortgage payments. This may also include other financial responsibilities connected to the property. So, in other words, babysitting is exactly what it says, is that we take the position of the seller by taking full responsibility for their property, and we make payments to their lender on their behalf. And whichever way we choose, we use a legal document called a joint venture agreement, or JV agreement as we sometimes call it. And this is what we use to gain instant control over the property, and we use that to seal the deal. And as you can see there on screen, we put up a joint venture agreement that we recently did back in October on a local property. And you see there's some preambles at the bottom of the document. Those three preambles are the main points within the document itself. So the property owner wishes to sell the property, the co-venturer, that's us, and the seller, the co-venturer, will assist in finding a buyer. And number three, the property owner is willing to wait for completion. Completion can take anywhere up to possibly 35 years. And you'll see there's some initials in the bottom left-hand corner. Our sellers initial every single page of the joint venture agreement, so they fully read the agreement, agreed with it, are happy with it, and by signing every page and then finally on the last page with a witness, it makes it a legally binding document.
Please take this and write it down as a tip. Many documents we sign don't have even page numbers, so we get page numbers and initial on every page of our documents. It is very powerful and stands very strong in court.
Thank you, Masud. So let's look at the content of a JV agreement. The main part of the JV agreement is the power of attorney. A power of attorney enables us to basically do as we wish with the property. It enables us to rent the property. It enables us to transfer the deeds, to settle any existing mortgages outstanding on the property. We can also use the power of attorney to, as authority to speak with the lender. So once we've got the power of attorney signed within the document, it enables us to do basically whatever we wish. It even allows us to move into the property and live there if we so wanted to. And in fact, some people have found their dream home this way. It also includes the price that we've agreed with the seller. The price can be, of course, anything from the outstanding balance on the mortgage through to the current market value, or even more than the current market value in some cases. The terms and conditions within the agreement include agreement to sell the property and monthly payments and any settlement figures that we might have agreed with the seller that they may receive from us at some time down the road. It includes a management agreement that allows us to manage the property, a third-party authority to enable us to speak with the lender, and it also allows us the right to make insurance claims and complete and sign any forms on their behalf. So, of course, you know, if there's a fire in the property or any problems within the property itself, we have builders insurance and we are able to make claims on that insurance. So basically, the instalment contract allows us to gain complete control over the property using the, as I said, using the joint venture agreement. And we can't bring everything to you tonight, obviously because there's time restrictions. This is quite a large subject that we're trying to run through with you this evening, and we're restricted to the time that we're allowed on this webinar. So we are running a 2-day workshop on the 16th and 17th of February in order to reveal everything you will ever need to know about instalment contracts and how you can make money from property in 2013. So please keep listening. And we're now going to take a look at the typical 3 paydays that are available to us in every single deal. So the first of the 3 paydays is what we call the upfront money or the upfront deposit. And that comes to us once we've found a buyer and we go to an exchange of contracts, of course using solicitors. The buyer generally uses the solicitors that we may recommend to them because those solicitors are familiar with these types of contracts and are able to perform according to our time schedule. So typically an upfront deposit would be anywhere between £3,000 and £50,000. In fact, we advertise our properties on Rightmove. We have our own account on Rightmove, and the minimum deposit that we can advertise on Rightmove is £5,000. So typically we get more than, well, we get a minimum of £5,000, but in some cases on a smaller or cheaper property, we may accept slightly less, of possibly £3,000. Typically on average, we receive deposits of around about £10,000 from each deal. Once the buyer moves into the property, as Masud said earlier on the instalment contract, they start to make payments to us. And those payments, that's our day two or a second payday, if you like, is the monthly cash flow. And the profits that we make from the monthly cash flow, that is after we've made our mortgage payments or any loan payments outstanding on the property, are anywhere between £300 and £2,500 per month. And a typical deal would average around about £600 a month. That's £600 a month cash flow profit, not £600 a month cash flow. In other words, after we've made our payments to our underlying mortgage lender. And then finally, and what that actually, as I move on to the third one, just as a note there, there is an underlying mortgage on the property, and that's where we make the cash flow between the rate that we're paying on the underlying mortgage and the payment that we receive from our buyers. In fact, we are protected from any rate increases because we tie the payment that we receive from our buyers, we tie that in with the rate that we pay to our lender. So if our lender increases our interest rate, we have in part of the contract, a condition in the contract, in the instalment contract, where it dictates that the payment increases in line with our payments. So as our payments increase, so the payment from the instalment increases. And of course, if it goes down, likewise, their payment would go down in line with that. And then finally, the third payday is the back end. The back end is when the buyer decides to cash out. In other words, at some time in the future, generally speaking 3 to 5 years, they'll go down a bank, down the high street and arrange a mortgage, and they'll come to us and say, we'd like to cash out early. We can get a cheaper loan down the bank than we're paying you currently, so why wouldn't we do that? So the back-end profits, generally speaking, are somewhere between 5,000 and 100,000, depending on the deal. And typically, through experience, I found that back-end profits have averaged around about £32,000. That basically is how we're making between £40,000 and £50,000 on an average deal. And all of that with no tenants, as opposed to, perhaps we can compare that with a lease option agreement where there are tenants. We have no voids, we have no repairs, we have no tenant renewals, we have no maintenance issues, no insurance costs. And as I said before, we even have no exposure to increases in interest rates, as the buyer pays the rate linked to the underlying mortgage rate. Furthermore, an instalment contract gives certainty to both buyer and seller because they have exchanged contracts, which is legally binding in law. And that's why it's such a great strategy. So I'm going to move on just to an example that we did on a local property here in Gravesend, where my offices are. This was a 5/6 bedroom detached property that the owner no longer could afford to make the payments on, and he wished to move away from the property and move away from the pain that the property was giving him. We acquired this property for no cost. We didn't pay a penny, and we didn't even pay a pound for the property. So the property came into us at no cost, and we babysit the property. So in other words, we haven't taken a mortgage, we haven't purchased it, but we have a joint venture agreement with the seller where we are the joint venture partners, and we are assisting him in finding a buyer in order to pay off his outstanding debt. And we found a buyer probably within about 3 weeks. a nice family come over from Southern Ireland, and they paid us an upfront payment of £25,000. And with the agreement that we had with the seller, we shared that £25,000. The seller took some of it, and we took some of it. And that, of course, provided us with some cash flow. The seller pays us an instalment each month, and after we make our payments on the underlying mortgage, we have cash flow of £750 left over after mortgage and expenses. Now, this particular Irish family are going to cash out in 5 years. That's the arrangement that we have with them. That's their agreement. They think that they're going to be in a very good position, a very strong position within 5 years to go down the bank and borrow the balance of the money that's outstanding. If we take £750 per month cash flow over a 5-year period, we're going to have a cash flow of £45,000. So we've taken up front of 25, we have 45,000 cash flow each month over a 5-year term, and then we've got back-end profits. That's when they decide to cash out. We've calculated using an amortization table, which we have here on a piece of software that we have available to us. The amortization table shows us that in 5 years' time, our back-end profit will be £15,000. This deal that didn't cost us a penny, we simply babysitted on behalf of the seller. We don't make any payments on the property other than the mortgage payments. The current owners who have exchanged contracts with the seller are responsible for all the upkeep of the property, including the buildings insurance. We make a total of £85,000 on this deal. How many of those would you like? So that's instalment contracts in a very minute sense, and that's JVs or joint ventures. Of how we control the property. And we're going to look at the next subject, which is talking around lemons and how we can sniff profits in every deal. So over to you, Masud.
Thank you. That was very nice. Well, what is a lemon? I got asked many times. Let me explain it briefly. What is a lemon? Lemon is basically like the fruit. It is bitter. It's a property that is bitter, that is creating some sort of stress. Either it isn't cash flowing, either it won't let, either it's negative equity. Basically, negative cash flow. Negative cash flow means that the amount you get from renting is less than the amount you pay out to your mortgage repayment. Some properties, or some lemons, have very high cost service charges and maintenance bills. Actually, we had a 2-bedroom flat in right behind Silvertown, near the London City Airport, that had a horrendous service charge of £200 every month. So we were very pleased to get rid of it. Also, lemon could be a property that is difficult to finance. Some ex-council properties are very difficult to finance. Also, a lemon could be a property with high mortgage rate. For example, a property that you may bought back in the days where there were subprime lenders. Also, it could be a property that is undesired and you've got just capital tied up in it. Simon has got one in Lease. He wants to sell. So I'll give you an example of how we have converted a lemon to a lemonade. Doug had a nice 1-bedroom flat in Manchester, actually Salford Keys. Very nice, cute property, but he bought it at the wrong time, 2007, in the height of the market, when everything was very, very expensive. He bought £136,000 and £710.
So I did get a cashback on that deal. I got £12,000 cashback.
Really?
And that's why I paid.
Does that make you feel happy?
Well, it did at the time.
So now he's worth 100. How does that make you feel?
Oh, not so good.
So how much are you losing?
Quite a lot.
About 40 grand. So that property was about 40 grand in negative equity. What a nice one. And listen to that. Monthly payment, $545 to the bank. So Northern Rock every month asks £545 from Doug. So Doug also has got a service charge of £92 on top of that. Also ground rent. Oh my God. So he only gets £525 from the tenant. Look at that, £136 every month. Open your wallet, take £140 out of it, pay. £140, pay. How does that make me feel?
Not so good.
On top of that, he's got voids, repairs, he has to pay the estate agent every time to let it, and he has to produce a tenancy agreement. Also, he's got letting fees. Well, what we did was, Doc said to me, Masud, I had to get rid of this. We opened our deal analyzer, put the property on, and I said, Doug, look, we have to sell this for a little bit over the market value. Actually, quite a little bit more than the market value. So we know that we've got a mortgage of £136,710. So I had to find a greater figure. So I decided 142,999 wouldn't be so bad. And we start listing the property. We put it on Rightmove, and it sat there for 18 months. No one called. But fortunately, one gentleman rang and said, well, I really love your property in central Manchester. Can I have a look? I called the tenant, arranged the viewing. The guy went in there and said, well, I like it. Where do I pay the holder deposit? I sent him the bank details, and within an hour I had a payment. I said, Doug, do you know what? The miracle happened. Someone is buying your land. When the buyer moved in, he paid a deposit of £5,000. Because he is a buyer, he is not a tenant anymore, like in lease options. He is paying the service charge. We are not paying the service charge. He is responsible for the service charge. He is responsible for the ground rent. And his monthly payment was £805. So now we've got a person that has paid us £5,000 deposit. He's paying £805 every month, and we're paying only £545 to the bank.
And we've exchanged contracts.
And we have exchanged contracts. How wonderful is that? Now, the net monthly cash flow is £260, from minus 140 plus the voids, repairs, maintenance, and fees, to £260 without none of them. No voids, no maintenance, and letting fees anymore. How powerful is that? Here is the property himself. 1-bedroom apartment, central Manchester, very cool location, nice place, rather modern with concierge and all the stuff, but it's gone down in value and it's not a nice, profitable property anymore. It is a property that sucks your money. So we've got £5,000 upfront from the buyer. Now our cash flow is £260 a month. So we have locked in the buyer actually for 5 years, so he can cash out within a 5-year period. So that will give us £15,600 total in net cash flow. A property that has been £40,000 into negative equity, we've turned it to a £20,000 net profit. And you don't have no exposure to interest rates increase. So if the interest rates go up, actually our cash flow will be greater. So we are secure. How many of those would you like? Doug, how many other properties you got like that?
Well, Masud, I have, that I can think of within my portfolio, I have another 3, another one in Manchester, and another 2 in Birmingham. And once I've sorted those 3, there's probably another 1 or 2 that are not performing that greatly. But these are the negatives that I want to get rid of.
Well, Doug, just suppose we could do this on all of these properties. How would that make you feel?
That would make me feel fantastic.
Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you learn the knowledge and if you got this power, you can do deals with anyone, everywhere. So, I'm going to tell a little bit about how I sniffed the profits in this deal. So, I realized that when I look at the numbers, I saw that the service charge and ground rent were creating basically the negative cash flow. So when you remove those 2 fees, it's almost like zero cash flow. But we had to get rid of this service charge, and we knew that installment contracts will enable us to do so. So I said to that, look, if we can sell it for a little bit about what we owe on it, I think someone will buy it. The monthly payments are not that expensive, and I think if you put a couple of £100 profit on it, it will be easy to sell and it won't be that difficult. And that's what we did. We made it rather easy for the buyer to buy and put the minimum deposit allowed on Rightmove. And that's what they liked about it, because our buyer had £15,000, but they liked the fact that they can put only 5 out of that 15 because they want to invest the money elsewhere. And that made it really, really attractive. And he never questioned the price. That's how we sniffed the profits. Basically, we realized that, okay, if we make it easy for them to buy, and if we make the monthly payments affordable, and get rid of the service charge and ground rent, it will be really easy to sell. And that's why we structured it in this way. So, I hope you understand that. So now, that is going to tell you a little bit about win-win-win.
Good, thank you. Well, that was interesting. And yeah, Masud, thank you for getting rid of my my lemon in Manchester for me. So win-win-win. Basically, when we talk to buyers and sellers, our priority is always that it's ethical. And it is always a win-win situation, particularly with sellers. Thinking back in the good old days when I was buying property below market value, I'd always look for a discount of typically 30%, 35% in some cases, absolute minimum discount of 25%. That wasn't always a win-win situation. It was certainly a win for me, but it wasn't always a win for the seller, particularly where they were in difficulty with their mortgage payments. So with an instalment contract, we're able to pay more. In some cases, we're able to pay full asking price or even more than the full asking price, because the instalment contract provides us with such massive cash flow and profitability that we're able to pay, in some cases, full asking price. So we're able to do that. Of course, it's a win for the seller, particularly where a seller is possibly in the repossession process. And they can sell their property to us with very, very little fees, little or no fees at all. They certainly don't need to pay an estate agent. And where we're babysitting the property, of course, we can take the property, the problem away from them, move them away from the repossession process, stop the repossession, and thus save their credit rating. So they end up with no estate agency fees, no selling costs. They improve their credit rating, and of course they would clear their arrears, their mortgage arrears, which we pay down for them over a period of time. And with that, the banks win. The reason why the banks win is because they get paid. Saves them the aggravation and the stigma from repossession. Banks, I don't think banks enjoy repossessing people. And Masud, I understand that you told me today about the Santander were
a few months ago, I think it was mid-2012, when I started getting messages when I log into a Santander online account. Santander had a message about we recently been downgraded, but that doesn't mean that our service, the quality of our services has changed. So why do you think they have downgraded Santander?
Well, it's Moody's, isn't it? Downgrade them, which is the financial measure of these companies. Basically, I think if these banks go through too many repossessions, it's looked at by the Financial Services Authority as very dimly, because if they're repossessing too many people, which there appears to be, it's got to be brought into question about their ability to lend money responsibly. You know, if they lend money responsibly, then they shouldn't have to repossess too many people. So, you know, Santander have been downgraded because of repossessions recently. So, in our case, it's a win for them because they get paid. And then finally, the tenants who are forced into renting, who want to become homeowners, they win because, of course, we're able to help them get to move into a property without the need of a mortgage and with a very, very small deposit. So where the banks are turning people away and they're forced into becoming tenants, we help them to become homeowners. And then finally, of course, we win. We win because we've transacted the business. We've put the deal together. We found a creative way of making this work for them. so everybody wins, and that's one of our major priorities. So hopefully you've got lots of questions for us. We're just coming towards the end. We're going to recap now on what we've spoken about this evening. First of all, Masud spoke to us about how and why you should be using instalment contracts in today's market, how you can profit from property in 2013. I spoke to you about how to buy and control property using no more than a joint venture agreement of one document, which is very easy to understand and use. We looked at the 3 paydays from each deal and where we're profiting and how we're making between 40 and £50,000 per deal. Masud spoke to us around how to sniff the profits in any and every deal and turn lemons into gold mines. And finally, how to create a win-win-win situation in every deal. I hope you enjoyed that. Masud is just going to run through some details of our upcoming workshop, which is on the 16th and 17th of February. It's a 2-day workshop, and we're going to bring to you whoever wishes to come along and join us for the 2 days. It's going to be a fantastic time. We're going to spill the beans. We're going to bring everything that we've got and more. So Masud, over to you.
Right. How to buy properties and how to buy and control properties with little or no money down. So, as you remember, when I came here, I came from a foreign country, so I didn't have the ability to borrow money because I was a student, and I didn't have any savings because I had student debt. So, many people ask me, how do we buy houses with little or no money down? That's what we're going to teach you at the 2 days. So, you're going to know exactly how to buy houses with no money down. So we're going to teach you the entire buying process, step by step. So you're going to know what we do when we find a buyer. You're going to know what we do when we sell the buyer. You're going to know what to do when we find a seller. We're also going to teach you how to sniff the profits in any and every deal. I just show you a little example in Manchester, how I found the profits in that little flat. So we're going to show you how to do that in any and every property deal you have. You can make money from any property, I guarantee you. Doug is going to go through the mindset of a property investor, and he's absolutely going to transform the way you think. Doug has got that ability to give you the energy and the power to keep going, and never give up. That's what I got from him when I started working with him since 2009, and that has given me a very, very big power to go ahead and do the things that I am afraid to get out of my comfort zone and do the things that I wouldn't usually do. So that is going to change you, and you will have a very, very different mindset on Monday morning. Also, structuring property deals and maximizing profits. Many of you don't know how to judge whether you get the right deposit or the right monthly amount. We're going to show you how do we do that with every different deal, and how we do that with the deals where you got little mortgages, you got a lot of mortgages, or deals where you have to sell really quickly. Also, we're going to show you a real-time role plays, live conversation. You're going to hear us live talking, how we talk on the phone, how we talk in the office, how we talk when we meet people at the house. Also, we're going to give you the whole psychology of a property buyer and property seller, so you understand why they came to us and why they want to do business with us. So you're going to learn our master negotiation skills. Also, we're going to give you real life case studies, exciting current deals that we're doing right now. In day 2,
Day 1, day 2.
Wow. Day 2, we're going to focus more on structuring the installment contract. So you'll be able to collect the data from a joint venture agreement and know how to put it on an installment contract so you can get the right amount of profits you deserve. Also, you're going to get our most powerful research and marketing techniques. We have gone through very, very different marketing types, and we know what works and what doesn't work. So we're going to give you exactly what works so you can start on Monday without wasting any time and start generating leads. Also, you're going to learn our unique and highly efficient sales process. So many people get it wrong. They have the deals, they have the buyers, they have the sellers, but they can't get the deals through on time. they spend so much time with solicitors, they spend so much time negotiating, and that's why deals fall through. That's never going to happen to you anymore. Also, you're going to learn how systems, processes, and documentation. So when you have the systems, when you have the process and the right documentation, deals happen quick. And when they happen quick, you make profits quick. So you're going to get all that. Also, finding and qualifying converting buyers into satisfied homeowners. Many of our students are very skillful now how to convert buyer leads into satisfied homeowners. So we're going to teach you exactly how we talk to them and how we explain them that this is an opportunity, not just a normal house. Also, we're going to give you techniques how to build your powerful power team, how to build your contact list, and how to create wealth for life. We're going to give you 101 ways of generating leads. I had so many people asking me, how do you find the leads? How do you get the people? How do you get the sellers? How do you get the buyers? Well, we're going to give you 101 ways. So don't worry about it. You will be able to find buyers. Also, we have a giveaway bonus, our best kept secret, worth 100 grand. You can't do that on every deal, but on deals that you can do, when those rare opportunities come, you will be able to make 100 grand plus. And it is very easy. You just have to have the mindset to negotiate that. That's all you need. Simon has asked us to give some more bonuses. He said, what you're giving is not enough, and we wanted to give even more. So we're going to give you our personal documentation pack. Basically, you're going to get a thick folder that is going to have the joint venture agreement in it that will enable you to control property. You're going to have the installment contract that will enable you to sell property. You're going to have another joint venture agreement to get your money back when you complete on a deal or when you do a bridge for your buyer. Also, you're going to have a third-party authority to talk to the lender. So that will enable you to talk to any lender. Also, you will have a lockout agreement to tie a buyer into a purchase. So when you have a buyer and when they say, yes, I want it, you will be able to tie the buyer in instantly, even before you see a solicitor. Also, you'll get much more than the other little documents that we haven't even mentioned. They will also come in the pack. Simon asked us to give us a second deposit, and it is access to our private Facebook group. So our Facebook group is a medium where our students and like-minded people share deals, share experience, share their problems, struggles, and that's where we help each other, and that's where we help each other to grow and become a bigger community. You're going to get absolute, complete free access to that if you attend the 2-day workshop. Simon asked us to give you a third bonus, a 30-day email support. The attendees at our last workshop didn't have that. You got it now. So many people ask us, well, if I have a deal tomorrow, who do I call or who do I write to if I need to ask you a question or if I need to get it through? Well, you got that now. You can send us an email and we'll respond immediately and we'll give you our best advice and make sure that you get a profitable and smooth deal immediately. So our event is happening on 16th, 17th of February 2013 at Renaissance Hotel in Heathrow. That is TW6 2AQ. We chose Heathrow because it's an easy place to get, and I hope you love it. It's a beautiful venue, and I think you'll really, really enjoy it. So if you want to reserve your seats today, before all the seats are filled, just $697 for one person plus VAT, or $997 plus VAT for 2 seats. We gave you this opportunity to bring your business partner or your wife or a friend with you, so we know that you need to support each other if you decide to do business with installment contract. It's very important to have somebody to support you, so please bring that person along with you, and you get it for $997 plus VAT. That is for those of you that want to bring their partners. So please let us know if you have any questions. If you want to reserve your seat, you can go to www.installmentcontracts.org. www.installmentcontracts.org. Please reserve your seats now. You heard limited availability. We have only actually 75 seats reserved, and most of them are filled now. So please hurry up if you really, really want to get on this workshop. And I guarantee you, it will change your investment strategies, and you'll definitely make profits in 2013.
Fabulous. Thank you, Masud. Let's get on to some questions, Simon, before we run out of time. So hopefully you enjoyed that presentation. Do you have a couple of questions for us?
Sure, yeah, thanks, Doug. Fantastic content there, lots and lots of interest, lots and lots of content. Yeah, a couple of people got lots of questions here. Let's just take a couple of these. So one question is about the service charges. Just to clarify, when you do one of these deals, who pays the service charges?
Well, the buyer pays the service charge. If it's a leasehold property where the buyer moves in, because they have exchange contracts, they already take the position of a buyer. So they're responsible to pay the service charge, ground rent, any maintenance fees, and also the insurance for the property. So remember, we are not landlords anymore.
Okay, fantastic. A couple of questions about stamp duty. Who pays that, and at what point in the transaction is that payable?
Okay, well, stamp duty is payable on any traditional property purchase, and when we're using an instalment contract, it is a traditional property purchase, apart from the fact that the completion is delayed for some time, up to 35 years. So on exchange of contracts, most solicitors would traditionally ask the buyer to pay the stamp duty. And he reports to the Inland Revenue with a special form that he has. But because there is no completion taken place yet, there are some solicitors, and we use those solicitors on a daily basis, that will give the choice to the buyer. Would you like to pay your stamp duty on exchange of contracts, or would you like to pay it on completion? It's completely legal to pay it on completion, but it is up to the solicitor to interpret the rules, the rules as they are laid down by the Inland Revenue. Certainly, 2 or 3 firms that we use interpret the rules, which are you pay it on exchange or you pay it on completion. But of course, it is always the buyer that pays the stamp duty, not the seller. Hope that answers your question.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that certainly does. And presumably you're quite happy to provide the details of such solicitors, actually, if somebody comes along to the workshop.
Yes, we are happy to share our contacts with our students.
Excellent. Okay. A question from Steve is that if I come along to the workshop, can you help me with one of these transactions to get rid of a lemon? So presumably that would come under the remit of your support post course.
Yeah, in fact, on the part of the workshop on day 2, we have a lemon session. So we ask people to bring their lemons with them on day 2 so that we can do a live case study in front of everybody, and we can solve the problems, and hopefully before the end of the day is finished, all delegates should have an answer to their problems if they will bring them along on the day. If not, then we can discuss them afterwards, no problem.
Okay.
Squeeze the lemons and make a lemonade on the day.
Perfect. A question from Milan is, where do you find the people with these properties to do these kind of deals? So I think you mentioned Rightmove was a great place to find the buyers, but where do you find the sellers of these deals particularly? That's something you cover on the course.
Yes, sellers are the traditional way of finding sellers for us investors is that we all use the same types of marketing material. We all use leaflets, we advertise in newspapers, we look on Gumtree or any online sites, we use estate agents, letting agents, personal recommendations. So we have we've listed 101 ways of finding motivated sellers. In fact, we've increased that list now to about 103. And we can go through all of those particular ways. But, when you've been in the property for a while, what you tend to do is that you stop using some of those methods that take up a lot of your time and take up a lot of time in terms of filtering. So we use online portals to find motivated sellers. But by using those methods, it means that we spend a lot of time filtering through the inquiries to find the golden nuggets. So subsequently, we find ways where we don't need to filter the leads quite so much. So we're working smarter rather than harder. And I'll cover the 6 top strategies that we use to find motivated sellers that need or require very, very, very little filtering.
Excellent. Thanks, Doug. A question from John is there any kind of guarantee? Which I can answer that one myself. Yes, John, there is a full money-back guarantee. So the guarantee is basically if you book your place and you come along, if by the end of the first day you don't think the workshop is worth every penny and more, you can leave for a full refund. Simple as that. So it's absolutely no risk to you to book this workshop and come along. We know you're going to be impressed. But if for any reason you're not, then you can go and you'll have got 1 day's training on us. So we really can't say fairer than that. We're putting the risk on ourselves to make that offer to you. So if you're thinking about it and sitting on the fence, I'd urge you to book your place because you have absolutely nothing to risk by doing that. Question from Steve is he can't make the dates. Are there any other dates planned? I don't think there are any other dates planned at the moment. There may be later in the year. But if anyone else is in that position, if you send us a message, send me an email on simon@simoncoulson.com. If we get enough of you that are interested, we will see about maybe recording the event and making some DVDs of it available just to a limited number of people. So shoot me an email, simon@simoncoulson.com, if you can't make the date. So obviously it's more valuable to be there in person because you get to meet Doug and Masud and ask them any questions in person. But if you just can't physically get there on those dates, that is certainly a possibility that we could maybe get you the training in another way. A question, Doug, on the transaction says, what happens if the buyer, so the person buying the property, can't afford to make the payments anymore? Presumably if they decide to walk away from the deal, they've kind of lost their deposit and lost all the premium rental that they've been paying. So I guess it'd be unlikely that they would want to walk away from the deal. But what happens is, have you ever heard of that happening in a transaction?
We ourselves, we didn't have that. We've done over 40 deals now. We didn't have a single instance because we have got a good qualifying process. So another tip for our listeners, if they're listening, if a buyer, the monthly payment that the buyer is paying you shouldn't be more than 35% of their combined income. So if you sell them a property that is more expensive than 35% of their combined income, that becomes unaffordable or may become unaffordable if the rents increase. But in any, if any problem happens during the transaction, they've got the right to sell the property to a third party at any stage. So because they've paid deposit and they've been making repayments, that's why we put them on a repayment basis only. We never do interest only. They always reduce the balance every month. Every payment they make, they reduce it. So even if they can't afford to make the payments in the future, they have got sufficient equity to be able to sell the house the traditional way. If they can't do that, what we can do is we can market the property as a goodwill on Rightmove and find another buyer that will pay the deposit, and we can help them to move in a new buyer, and we can help them to get their money back if that happens, but never happened.
Excellent. Okay, thanks for that, Masud. A question from Mary about the legal documentation to do one of these deals. Just to reiterate, that is actually bonus one. It is all of the legal documents and contracts and everything that you need to do this kind of transaction. So if you were to go to a solicitor and try and get that drawn up yourself, it's going to cost you thousands and thousands. But just one of the bonuses for coming on this workshop, you're going to get all of that legal paperwork for free, so that if you're sat on a lemon, you can get rid of your lemon yourself. And if you like the idea of this as a business that you can actually start up yourself and actually solve this housing problem, which is there really, that there are a lot of people out there without deposits that want to get on the housing ladder. There are people that want to get out of properties for whatever reason, and you can basically broker these deals. And as the guys have shown you in the case study this evening, make yourself a really nice healthy profit on the way in, monthly positive cash flow all the way through, and a big lump sum at the other end as well. So yeah, all of your documentation is included in that, and your 30 days post-call support and access to the Facebook group as well are your bonuses. So really, this is everything that you need to get started in this business, and it's just for $697 for a single place. Or if you know someone, maybe you know another property investor, someone that's got some properties that aren't doing as well as they might, then why not team up with someone and book 2 places? Because then effectively it comes down to $497 each, or $496.50 I think to be precise, because it's just $997 for 2 places. So any more questions, put those in the Q&A box, but otherwise I think we're going to wrap this up now. Anything you'd like to add on there, Doug?
Sorry, what was... Graham was talking to me then as you were talking to me, so I missed that.
I was just saying we're getting towards the end of the questions, so I just wondered if you had any sort of closing comments or anything you'd like to add.
Well, yeah, I can add that I've been in the property investing business now for 25 years, coming from an IFA background, and I've used every strategy available as an investor, and that includes developing property. I've built property over the years. I've got HMOs, I've got multi-lets, I've got single lets, I've traded property, I've flipped property, I've renovated property. I've done just about everything that you could think of as a property investor over the years. And I'm doing one strategy now, and that is installment contracts. And in fact, what installment contracts have enabled me to do is to continue buying property below market value. But what I do, because of the marketing, the way that I market, I actually get more leads now. Because in the past, you may have seen the adverts in newspapers and leaflets, etc., where they say, we offer a quick cash purchase, complete in 28 days, cash paid, quick completion, etc., etc. Well, I used to do the same, and I used to pick up the odd below market value deal. Today, my advertising reads, I buy any house, full market value or full market price paid, can pay 10,000 more. Please call. Contact details. I get umpteen calls from all different sources wherever I'm advertising. People are intrigued. How can you pay me more than my house is worth? And with that, we have a talking pattern on the telephone where we don't try to sell anything on the telephone. We simply purely getting them into a meeting. And by the way, everybody comes to my office to meet me. I don't go out to people's houses. I don't meet people outside of my office. All buyers, all sellers come to me. So they're already motivated before they get here. But subsequently, I'm still picking up below market value deals. I'm picking up all sorts of deals. But I'm seeing more people because they're intrigued how I can pay them more than the asking price. Of course, they have to come to my meeting to find out how I do it. And when they're in the meeting, of course, then I can find a way, a win-win solution that works for them. And I purchased property in the last 12 months for 50% of its value, simply because it helped the individual in their particular circumstances. And it was a win-win situation. It sounds as though it wasn't, but in fact it was. And I wouldn't have been able to do that in the traditional marketplace where I'm looking for BMV, which is what everybody's doing, basically. And finally, we take leads from other investors. So the guys who are out there doing BMV, below market value purchases, they throw leads in the bin that they can't buy. In other words, if something is negative equity or doesn't have enough equity in it, they can't buy below market value. In other words, if there's maybe only 10 or 20% equity in the property, below market value guys throw those leads in the bin. I take the leads out the bin, convert them, and make more money than the other guys have been making from BMB. So there's some compelling reasons why people need to come on this course and learn some of our secrets. And we're spilling the beans. We're bringing everything, best stuff. Everything will be shared on the 2 days. So hopefully a lot of you guys on here tonight will come and join us. We're really looking forward to the day.
Brilliant, thanks Doug, and yeah, I can confirm I'll be there as well because I've got a lemon in Leeds that I'm going to get rid of. So fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, Doug, and thank you, Masud. So just to reiterate, folks, the advantages of this strategy compared with what you may have thought were the best strategies to make money in property, which is below market value BMVs or maybe HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy. But compare this strategy with those and just look at the advantages. You haven't got the voids to worry about, you haven't got the maintenance of the property, haven't got the service charges, you get a higher market rent than you get with a traditional rental model. You're selling a property for a higher market price ultimately, and you don't need money to get into the deal in the first place. So it's just win-win-win on every level. And if you're still not sure, then come and spend a day with us. And if we haven't convinced you by the end of the first day, it'll have cost you nothing because there's a complete money back guarantee with this. So going to wrap this up there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the webinar. If you've got any more questions, then you just need to go to installmentcontracts.org. And if you want to book your place, that's where you need to go right now because there aren't many places left. So go yourself over to installmentcontracts.org and you can read more details on there about the course, what we're going to cover, and secure your place, which is 697 for one place or 997 for 2 places. That includes the full 2 days training and all the legal document pack and the support after the course as well. So everything that you'll need. So that's it. I think nothing more to say except thank you very much, Doug, and thank you, Masud. And if you've got any unanswered questions, then there is a contact form on installmentcontracts.org. So just fill that in and shoot us in any questions you may have, and we'll be happy to answer them. So once again, thank you very much. Thanks, guys, and good night.